All right, guys, absolutely massive day for Bitcoin today. After about 6 months of consolidation, we've seen a massive breakout. And so I'm going to jump in the charts, talk about what happened and what I think is going to happen next. And if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed. I'm Chris Dunn, if we haven't met yet, and I'm known as the world's first Bitcoin trading and investing educator. And what's interesting is I just noticed that it was the 10-year anniversary of my first blog post about Bitcoin. After Bitcoin went from $100 to about 1,000, my first blog post I ever wrote about Bitcoin was actually kind of bearish. I said, hey guys, just be careful. Yeah, we all believe in Bitcoin, but I think right now we're in a bubble. And I thought how insane it was that we went from $100 to 1,000, and that was just mind blowing. And, you know, looking back over the past 10 years, now we've been through several market cycles. And in spite of all of the negativity with FTX and failed shitcoins and government cronies attacking Bitcoin and crypto, the honey badger of money just continues to do what it does best, which is continue its path forward, right? And if we jump into the charts here, you'll notice that as of this morning, we had a breakout above this 61% extension, and the next major price area is around 40 to 42,000. And, you know, for anybody that doesn't know, we've actually been in a Bitcoin bull market since early January. This is where we broke bear market price structure. When we got above all three moving averages, we started making higher highs and higher lows. And we had the banking crisis in March, which gave us a great buying opportunity. And then really Bitcoin has been flat around that 28K resistance level, which turned into kind of a magnet. So when we got above it, it would pull back to it. When we got below it, we'd pull back to it. And then here on October 23rd, we had a breakout above 32K, which kind of confirmed that, hey, bull market is still intact. And as I said in my last video, and as I've been saying on Twitter and in our wealth building community, I just think it's really dangerous to try to short in a bull market. And what's happened is this morning, this is what's all over crypto news sites, is there is more evidence and a high likelihood that a Bitcoin ETF is going to be approved by January. And because of that, we've seen a lot of short liquidations on this breakout. And what happens is, this is basically how breakouts occur and what actually happens behind the scenes. So when you're testing resistance and people know that we're coming off of momentum, what happens is buyers step in, right? Obviously, but what happens on the ask side of the order book, or potential sellers and even shorts, is when you're challenging a resistance level, anybody that's short starts to stack their stop orders behind resistance. Okay. And they know that, hey, if this area breaks, it's likely going to go. And so it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where when you start to break through, and this is why I started actually scaling in on a long before it broke, because I know how fast things can move. And what happened was, as the order book, as people start to bid it up, and you see that those ask orders or those sell orders start to get eaten up by the buying volume, it's kind of like buying begets more buying. So anybody that's short, when their buy stop market orders start to get hit, anybody that was potentially going to sell starts to pull their orders off of the order book. So the sell side becomes more thin and the buy side becomes more strong, and people start to buy the breakout. So it's like buying begets more buying, which weakens selling. And that's where you get these like strong moves that happen really, really quickly. And if we go down to an hourly chart, you know, you can see just over the past couple of hours, things really started to heat up, and then they get overextended on the intraday chart and we get pullbacks. But the fact remains that, you know, we have been in a bull market all year. And if you ask the average normie on the street, hey, what's going on with crypto? They're going to laugh and say it's dead and a scam. And they're thinking in their mind about NFTs and FTX. But the reality is the charts don't lie. Bitcoin is up somewhere around 125, 130% year to date. And altcoins on aggregate or on average are also up, not nearly as much as Bitcoin, which is why we've got the Bitcoin dominance chart, which has been steadily going up as well, really for most of the year. And this is how these market cycles develop. Is step one, Bitcoin goes. Capital comes in from around the world, from people buying Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin, basically exchanging fiat for Satoshis. And then the value of Bitcoin goes up. And then when people start to take profit out of Bitcoin, they start to sell Bitcoin, some of that capital trickles down into altcoins, right? We've been talking about this for a decade now, but the biggest thing that I want everybody to understand is nothing has changed. Despite all the obituaries, all the negativity, Bitcoin continues to do what it does best, which is continue its upward trajectory. And if you look way out, if you zoom way out and you look at a logarithmic chart, you can clearly see the exponential gains and the runs and retracements. Let's just go to a weekly chart, but you can see the exponential gain over time, and Bitcoin just continues to surprise and demolish bears. Okay, so what do I expect to happen next? Let's talk a little bit about probabilities, possibilities, and plans, right? That's how I trade. I don't make predictions. I look at everything that could happen, all the possibilities. Then I weigh the probabilities, what I think is most likely to happen. And then I create a plan for any of those outcomes. That way I never get wrecked. And hopefully I make money in any of those possible outcomes. So if we jump over, take a look at Bitcoin on a daily chart, you can see the next major level. And what I'm really looking at is runs and retracements. So if we look at this leg from the pivot low, basically this was the FTX panic. And you notice how that was the biggest volume. That was capitulation, right? That was the market low. It's oftentimes when things look the scariest or the worst that, let me move this over so you can see it, but that is the panic. And that was the market low, right? Again, everything's perfect in hindsight, but it's just interesting to see how that works. But if we look at this leg, basically this run up over the past, this 6 or 7 month run, minus this retracement. So if you use a Fibonacci retracement, you can see that came right down in that sweet spot in between the 32 and the 61% retracement. And then if we run an extension off of that, you can see the first major area was here around 35K. That was the 61% extension. And then the next 100% extension is here around 41,000, which also lines up with this prior area where it was resistance back here in January 21, and then was basically a magnet. Price went over and under this 41K zone, turned into support, and then eventually resistance. And so I think that's where, the market typically likes to run from major area to major area. And we call that open air trading, right? Where you trade around these kind of confluence zones where you look for higher probability situations where you stack, if you can stack a dozen reasons why support's going to hold or resistance is going to break. And then you trade around those zones and let price action work and don't get overly obsessed with, the short-term price action. That's typically where you can do the best and you don't get chopped out trying to day trade or scalp. But let's talk about what the possibilities are here, right? So we know we've been in a bull market. We know, and I've talked about this in my prior videos, we're coming up on the halving in late April. And so Bitcoin's doing what it does best, which is it starts the bull market around 500 days prior to the halving. And then you get another 400 or 500 days after the halving of a bull market as well. But what could change this, right? We don't want to just be perma bulls and completely forget the downside potential because anything could happen, right? And if you get overly one-sided, if you get obsessed or euphoric about the bull possibility, that's where you get hurt because you don't think about risk management and you start YOLOing into, buying tops and stuff like that. So there's a couple of things that I think could cause a bull trap here. Number one is there is obviously euphoric buying anticipating the Bitcoin ETF, right? And if you don't know why that's so big, you can watch some of my past videos. But the biggest thing here is, people are looking at gold as an example. In the early 2000s, gold had an ETF and the spot ETFs that came out. And what followed was basically several years of a bull run. So this is where the spot ETFs were approved. And then, from about 2003, 4 up to about 2011, this just had a massive bull run. And that is the expected result for Bitcoin, right? Along with just the halving cycle. So what could get in the way of that? Well, something could happen where the SEC actually denies them again, and we go back into, a lot of uncertainty with that, because as of today, as of right now, there's still no guarantee that this is going to be approved, but it's looking very likely. The other thing is the stock market. So we've had a big bounce in stocks over the past couple of weeks. But we are still in kind of bear market price action where we've been getting lower lows, lower highs. And as of right now, we're still below the prior pivot high back here in mid-October. So this really, we need to kind of fast forward, I'd say like another week to see what price action does around here, because this is either going to lead to a deeper lower low or a short squeeze where we go back up above this 100-period moving average and actually get a higher high. And if that happens, we could actually just continue the sustained like kind of decade plus bull market that we've been in. So how that kind of can correlate with Bitcoin is if there is a big dump in the stock market, Bitcoin typically panics with Bitcoin. But right now we've actually seen evidence of decoupling or negative correlation with Bitcoin and the stock market over the past couple of weeks, when Bitcoin actually broke out from the price magnet of 28K to 35K. This leg up was actually inverse because stocks were actually coming down during that time period. And that's what I really like to see, is signs of where Bitcoin is actually trading to its own beat. It's not directly correlated or just following stocks. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, we have a compelling break. And again, I think it's, like I said in my last video, I just think it's dangerous to be short Bitcoin right now prior to the halving. And, I'm absolutely long and continuing to let the price action speak the truth. And, if you ever just get overly just kind of overwhelmed with all the news headlines and market sentiment, either negative or positive, every day there's just so much noise here on these news sites. Just zoom out and look at price action and think about what's happening on the bigger picture. So I hope that's helpful, guys. If you want to trade alongside of us, you can go to chrisdunn.com/community, and that'll take you to our wealth building community page where you can get in our Discord channel, come to our live market update classes that I do every week. And we also do stocks, personal finance. We've got a financial planner in there. We've got a former hedge fund trader who helped a hedge fund grow from about 100 million to over $1 billion in assets. And we've got OGs in the crypto space that have been with me for over a decade. And we've also got people that are brand new. So check that out. I'll link it up below. If you have any questions, leave a comment, like it up, share with anybody that you think needs to see this. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bullshit out there when it comes to looking at crypto prices. There's pump and dumps, there's rug pulls, there's a lot of scams. There's people that, just talk about price and they have no idea what they're talking about. So share this up, guys. If you got value from it and you think somebody else could benefit from it, that's what you could do for me. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.